Sometimes we can convince ourselves that if we just had a little bit more time, then we would get to other things that just aren't making it into our day or into our week. And I've actually been thinking about that because I look for different patterns coming up and seeing where am I avoiding things and what's not making it into my days or weeks, even when I have time. So I can fall into that pattern really quickly of I'm just so busy, I don't have much time, and using that as an excuse to not do certain things. And so I know this is something that comes up for a lot of other people, and I wanted to share it. So usually what happens is we try to be more efficient. How can I get more done in less time or do things quicker? Looking at how can I reorganize my schedule to buy back some time? Just find different ways, whether it's getting help to create more time, basically. And to be fair, that feels really good in the moment. It helps sometimes. But I've also noticed even when I find the time or have more time, certain things might still not make it into my day or week. And so that is something worth paying attention to if you've also noticed that too, because it's likely there's more going on there and you're actually avoiding it. You're prioritizing other things because you're avoiding that. And so some examples might be like putting off a difficult conversation, could be spending time with your kids doing something, could be actively engaging in workouts, could be writing towards your book, or could be spending time doing meal prep so that you can have healthier choices throughout the week. And so if you notice, like you set the intention at the beginning of the week, I'm going to do these things, but then even when you find time, you're still not using that time to do those things, that's where time is really not the issue. And so you might be using that as an excuse or a story and thinking, well, if I had more time, I would do that. But the reality is probably not. In some cases, that's simply an excuse that we're using to not engage in those activities. And so we're filling our time with other things that feel productive. So for me, it's super easy to just fill my time with housework or other types of work and feel like I used all my time really well and I was productive. But if I'm not careful, I've fallen into that pattern of just avoiding certain things and not making them a priority. So what happens is if we find ourselves with more time, but we're not following through on those things that we say we would if we had more, it's usually more so an issue with urgency. What feels more urgent? Because a lot of times if we're setting the intention, that means that we recognize it's something important to us, it's something good that we should or want to be doing, but it's just not holding up in comparison to other priorities that we have. And so I want you to pay attention to if you're spending all of your time doing things that feel more urgent, like this should be taken care of first, basically, then you're just prioritizing other things over this and basically signaling to your brain, this is less important in the grand scheme of things, whether it's because of urgency, because other things have deadlines attached to them, or time of day matters. It could be that. So if you pay attention to this, you can start to notice and you can actually start to shift it. So what do you do if you want those things to actually make it into your days and weeks? Is you have to drive up that sense of urgency and not tolerate it basically being pushed aside week after week. And so there's different ways you can do this socially by getting other people involved and holding you more accountable. Say, for example, it's exercising. If you're paying to attend a class, then you're more likely to follow through because you're like, oh, I already paid for that. They're expecting me. Like if you have a personal trainer, those types of things can increase your sense of urgency and importance, but you can do this yourself. You don't have to have other people holding you accountable. You can just start to build that sense of urgency yourself. And one of the easiest ways is to leverage the cost of continuing to not. So if you say, okay, exercise hasn't been making it into my weeks consistently, and then you start to think, what's the cost 3 months from now? What's the cost 12 months from now? What if this pattern continues and I keep pushing this aside, and so I'm not getting as much exercise as I need to, what am I potentially running into 6, 12 months down the road that would have been avoidable if I would have invested that time now? And sometimes we have to go to that place in order to say, like, no, this is more important than the dishes right now, to make sure that I'm following through with my exercise routine or whatever it is. And you can do that with any of the other things that you're saying, this is important to me, but I'm not actually following through and doing it. So I hope that helps. If it does, leave me a comment down below and let me know what area you've been pushing week after week. I also wanted to share with you, if you're somebody who tends to end the week feeling like you needed more time, you didn't get enough stuff done, I send out a email every Friday afternoon designed exactly for that purpose, to help you end your week well, acknowledging where you showed up, feeling satisfied with the progress that you made, and it helps you just recalibrate to head into the next week with clarity, knowing where you need to shift your focus to, and just instead of carrying discouragement and frustration about what didn't get done from the previous week, it allows you to head in to the weekend and the next week feeling satisfied and optimistic about where you are headed. So I'll drop a link down below to that so you can get signed up and you'll receive the next one on Friday.